I haven't got one. Okay, everyone, welcome back. We're into workshops for the rest of the afternoon. So I'll hand straight over to, it says George and Kevin, but it's Kevin and Dinah. Water Transition Bylaw Memorandum of Understanding.
Everyone, it's marvellous to be in front of you yet again. I'm without George this week. She's on leave. I feel very much like I'm missing my left arm, but we will fight through. Thankfully, I have Diana here to keep us on the straight and narrow. What we're discussing this afternoon, glasses on, is just the bylaw delegations and bylaw memorandum of understanding for the transfer of bylaws to Waikato Waters. The purpose of the workshop is to outline the background of the proposals to delegate to Waikato Waters the functions and powers relating to administration and enforcement of wastewater and water bylaws. And very important to note, it's the administration and enforcement only, not the making of bylaws. And to enter into an MOU with Waikato Waters and the other shareholding councils in relation to the process that will apply to the review of water services bylaws. And other than that, I'll pass to Diana because she will have many interesting things to say before we take questions.
Thank you, Kevin. So at the end of June, we'll be taking a report to Council to seek Council approval to delegate to Waikato Waters Council's enforcement and administrative powers relating to our water services bylaw, and also to enter into a memorandum of understanding. So just a little wee bit about background. We have a water supply bylaw, which basically sets out how Council will approve connections to our drinking water system, and will, put conditions of approval, and also if you want to do works near our water supply system, you need Council approval. So that's the one bylaw. The other bylaw is about wastewater and trade waste, and that sort of sets out that Council will approve connections to our wastewater system, but also such things as also entering into trade waste agreements and entering into trade waste consents. So these really cover sort of the water services functions that are actually going to be transferring to Waikato Waters. So to ensure that Waikato Waters can adequately exercise the powers that will be relating to the assets that they'll be responsible for, it's proposed that Council will delegate to Waikato Waters all of the powers to administer and enforce those bylaws. And sort of separate to that, there's also under the Local Government Water Services Act, there's actually a legal duty to review all our current water services bylaw by August next year. And that needs to be done along with the other shareholders of Waikato Waters. So a memorandum of understanding is being developed, and a draft, the current draft of which is attached to the memorandum that was sent to you, which sets out the process by which we'll review our current bylaws, but then also we'll adopt new bylaws, which essentially will give Waikato Waters the power to do all the approvals. So you won't need a delegation going forward. So yeah, we just wanted to give you an early heads up that will be coming in June, but very happy to take any questions.
Go ahead, Claire.
Yeah, thanks. Obviously, it's necessary work, and it looks like you've got it covered really well. And that's great. I was going to request that we include the reporting that Waikato Waters does on how the delegations have been exercised, and any particular things where they haven't. I suppose there've been issues such as not being able to grant 100% of the requests, or if there've been things they haven't been able to resolve. Now, I understand that from what I could gather from the memorandum, there's going to be that coordination group where that sort of thing will be sort of aired at a sort of a staff to staff level. But I still think it'd be good for elected members to also be aware of things, and it's maybe where things aren't working quite well. I mean, I know that for me, I'm really concerned that the ability for people to get connections and the timeliness of all that, I do want to make sure that that's going to still happen, in a timely way and things. So I'm hoping there's going to be some kind of reporting that's going to come through to elected members on that, the performance side of it or something. Yeah.
Thank you. We can include that with our discussions with Waikato Waters.
Does that best belong here in the bylaw delegation or best belong in the performance framework that's being developed elsewhere?
You're stealing my thunder, Councillor Montgomery. That's exactly what I was going to say. We'll try to pick those things up in the performance framework, and also you're sort of touching on a thing. You want to hear the exception reporting. You don't necessarily want to hear when things are ticking along okay. You want the things that aren't happening well to be escalated to your level. And I think that theme should come through strongly in the performance framework.
Ian?
Quick couple of questions on this. So given clause 8, where we say this is an MOU, it's not legally binding, then in 6.4 we have a bit about cost recovery. Is that cost recovery enforced somewhere else?
Actually, this was a draft, so that's actually a clause which is currently under negotiation.
Okay.
So I think the intention is it's not legally binding, but I guess it's sort of to set expectations about cost allocations. So there's no misunderstandings around that.
Okay, so they're not trying to wriggle. Okay, I mean, everything that we've done so far seems to be very good. Well, so I don't have too much concern, but it just, and then similarly in 6.5, we basically give, if there's a complaint, Waikato Waters handles it in its entirety, which is probably okay. That's probably what we want it to do, but certainly in the interim period, it's still our reputational risk to a certain degree. So I don't know how to express that question in words.
I hear you, and it should be possibly transitional arrangements over the first year to 18 months. Yeah, we'll take that into account.
Something goes wrong, they're doing the defence, we have it, it's public.
Yeah, we'll note that.
Liz?
Just as we get to these, maybe to a court case with someone, who's responsible for the paying for that?
Well, the legislation provides that council remains responsible for the delegated functions. And so in terms of the practicalities of what would happen if there was a claim from a legal perspective, we still remain responsible for the exercise. So that would be something we'd have to work through with Waikato Waters if something did come up along those lines about cost allocation.
Yeah, so would it be a shared decision to go to court?
Oh, would someone claim against council
Or vice versa. Like we took someone. Or if the water board took someone to court, it would be a shared decision.
Enforcement of the bylaws.
Yes, so they would have their own ability to make own decisions about enforcement because it's been delegated to them. So they could decide whether to take any enforcement action for any non-compliance. Just as we would, but we still have those powers as well if we wanted to. I think there would be pragmatic discussions if needed. It sort of highlights these questions that it's quite messy in this interim period where it's our bylaws, our responsibilities, but it's been exercised by a third party. And that's why this memorandum of understanding is so important. So we've got a framework, we'll get new bylaws in place as soon as possible where actually those consenting decisions will be made by Waikato Waters instead.
Just that point about we have to review our bylaws with the other shareholding councils, that's presumably to make them all aligned.
Exactly.
Why are we doing that in advance? Why don't we just, I suppose we have to do that before we hand over, right? Is that how this process is working?
So we've got until August next year to do the review, and I guess until Waikato Waters is established. So, there's so much other work in this transition period that we wouldn't have had the opportunity to create brand new bylaws for 1st of July.
But yes, I think what you're hinting at is that it's desirable to hand Waikato Waters a set of harmonised bylaws for them to administer.
And we've got to go through the full bylaw rigmarole between now and next August. Yeah, well, okay, fun.
And I'm suspecting, Monty, that that's also, what's also been taken into consideration is the fact that we're in that rolling more of mergers and acquisitions over that time. And so it allows appreciating the work that those other councils are doing during that time as well. So it gives us space and time to be able to do that. Would that be right? Mm.
Okay, anything further? You don't require anything from us as a workshop, heads up, that's all coming. Right, Ian?
I've got one little thing. Are we going to see Kevin again?
Yes.
Good. I was going to, I'll save, I was going to say thank you very much for all your hard work, but if we're going to see you again, I'll hold it.
No, Kevin's staying.
Okay.
Thanks, team. Okay, Lisa, you here?
She is. Yeah, Diana, can I ask you to grab Lisa? She's in the bar room. Thank you. Kia ora, Scott. Welcome. Oh, my heart and mind.
All right. Kia ora, Scott. Lisa, we've been blessedly short of any pre-reading for this, so this is like a magical mystery tour. So over to you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Scott Campbell, who is from Strategically, and he's going to be my trustee sidekick this afternoon. I'd just like to begin by setting the context for this workshop. So for some time now, we've been operating in a period of significant organisational and sector change. And in October, we saw almost half of the faces around this table become newly appointed. And we've heard and understand your priorities as a new council. We are also progressing major structural reform through the establishment of Waikato Waters. At the same time, we now have the government who have signalled wider local government reform, most recently the Head Start pathway for amalgamation, and internally we're advancing our Future Us work program to position the organisation for the future. Against this backdrop of change, you have voiced a clear and consistent priority and that a stronger focus on communication and engagement with our community and a desire to lift openness, transparency and trust in council decision making as a priority for you. This was also reflected in the strategic goals and priorities you recently adopted to guide the development of the long-term plan. This is also reinforced by our 24-25 annual residents survey, which shows that while there are areas of good performance, overall satisfaction and trust remain key challenges for us as a council. Importantly, trust has been identified as the highest priority for improvement. Our current comms and engagement strategy adopted in 2023 provides a solid foundation. However, it is largely systems and channels focused. What we are now seeking is a more strategic shift, one that focuses on how we build trust and confidence with our community and we sustain that over time, and the respective roles of elected members and staff in that effort. In particular, we want to strengthen shared understanding across the organisation and governance about what drives public trust, where we are performing well, where we need to improve, and how we can be more intentional in how we engage our community. To support this, we've engaged Scott as an experienced independent advisor to lead a reset and refresh of our external communication strategy. This will ensure an external objective perspective that is not constrained by internal assumptions or political dynamics. Scott is here to start this work. He brings significant experience in strategic communications, governance, advisory, and reputation management, and is well regarded across the local government sector. Our proposed program includes 3 phases. First is a facilitated workshop with elected members to explore the evolving communications landscape and our collective role in it. Secondly, engagement with Steph and the executive team and the chairs of the community boards through interviews and/or workshops. And thirdly, development of a refreshed comms and engagement strategy informed by analysis, insight, and feedback. This work recognises that communications alone cannot resolve operational challenges that may contribute to a trust deficit, but it can play a critical role in how those challenges are understood, how council actions are perceived, and how trust is strengthened over time. Ultimately, this approach provides an opportunity not only to refresh our strategy, but to build shared ownership of it and to clearly understand what is required, both in terms of behaviour and resourcing to deliver it effectively. I'll hand over to Scott to begin the discussion.
Kia ora, Lisa, thank you very much. Chair, Your Worship, councillors, Steph, good to see you again, and you too, Kirsty, it's been a long time. Te mea tōtai mi atu kia koutou, mō tō mihi whakatau mai I hau, I te ahi nei, nā reira tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou. Thank you for having me in the council chamber. Lisa's actually gone through my first slide in introduction, so it's a good use of effective time. I will jump into this and appreciate that hopefully you can see the different word types and fonts. If you can't, don't worry too much about going through the words. I will take you through the words on the slide. The intention for the next, or for half of our session, is to actually listen to you. And so I'm going to set up a couple of slides in a way that hopefully will prompt some questions, some answers from you. I will prompt you through questions. This is really an opportunity to listen to you, what you are hearing from people out in the community, what is important from or for you, and what is important from your community. We'll then go through a bit of a look at where the council reputation is currently, and this is, I guess, my observation of council's reputation, and then look at the changing landscape. So that's things like the new media, AI, what that impact has on how people are communicating and engaging, and then go into, I guess, what does good look like in a comms and engagement perspective as well. You are, obviously, if it isn't obvious, but the number one part of a strategy going into an election campaign in November this year. By that I mean the local government sector. Front and centre on pretty much everything that's coming out of Wellington at the moment. That is a difficult place for you to operate. You've got the expectations already of your community, then against the expectations which are coming from political leaders in Wellington. At the same time, change is hitting you in every direction, whether that's through your new CCO with water, whether that's through Head Start pathway. All of this change is happening at the same time as you've got a cost of living crisis and people finding it really difficult to fill their cars up and put food on the table. The expectations are even higher on you at the moment than they have been before. So as Lisa already covered off, you have a new council, and I think one of the challenges with a new council at times is that we can assume that there's shared knowledge, both across this table and outside of here. And so one of the things I will always say to people at the start of a triennium is actually, let's not assume that we know everything ourselves and that the people outside of this building know everything that we're doing. And actually it's an opportunity over this first year in particular to engage, to listen, to reset at times. obviously with water moving, that is a transition and a challenge in itself. And I think the nuance here for councils across the country is that residents won't neatly separate the CCO and you for some time. And regardless of what happens, and if you look at your resident survey, the water satisfaction side has been sliding. Now, if something goes wrong, the phone will go here. And that is a difficult position for you because you don't have that direct control under the CCO model now. So council's reputation stays exposed even during this new period of transition. Sector reform, and you know, you've been pretty open with where I think you're looking at going, but it is a time that is filled with uncertainty for people in an extremely tight timeframe. And you will not have the opportunity, unfortunately, to engage in consultation in a way that the people might expect for this type of reform. That is the nature of the proposal that's been put by the government. However, you do have the ability to, once you've made decisions, to communicate them out to the public and reflect what's important back to them. I think what you will find, I suspect, during this period of the 3 months or the next couple of months in particular, is that there will be a huge focus on duplication, on efficiency and on effectiveness, and on wages and salaries and operations inside the organisations. That is a political football at a national level, but it's now yours at a local level to deal with. The trust, one of the hardest things to do is to build trust when you're under pressure. However, it is also the time where you are able to build trust, right? If you do it well, you can actually take people with you. And I think when we look at your numbers from your last couple of surveys, you have been on a bit of a path up. That is from a very dramatic decline, but there is a recovery there. Chair, throughout this next little while, by all means, if anyone wants to put their hand up and ask questions, please stop me at any point as well, to councillors. So, as I spoke about there a couple of hours, and I appreciate you've been in workshops for most of the day, and so if we don't take 2 hours, we don't have to take 2 hours. But the opportunity to listen from you as representatives of the community, that's really important for us as we develop the comm strategy. Talk through the changing landscape and then the role of elected members. I want to be really clear that when we get to that point, that is not me advising you on how to do your job. You as political leaders of your community, do your job. What I will be going through are some of the ways that each of us working together either impacts both positively, negatively, or neutrally on the community that's out there. And so that's really just information for you to take or not. A little bit about me very, very quickly. Once upon a time, I was a journalist at TV3 and was in the Parliamentary Press Gallery for 4 years, as well as being on international reporting and police round. The last 16 years, I've been in crisis communications. Any crisis you name it, I've probably been involved, helping in it. I'm called a fixer and been in executive leadership at public sector. Often I'm parachuted into organisations to support. I am a professional director as well. I have an exec MBA, first class honours, and I'm a doctoral candidate currently through Otago University and Harvard. Sorry, Steph.
Interrupt if I may there, Monty. Obviously, I've had the pleasure of working with Scott for quite some time, including through the Whakaari eruption, and have been involved a number of times with Scott where the Prime Minister and senior ministers have relied on Scott in terms of their relationship directly with the community under times of great pressure. So he is an incredibly, I think Scott's very humble, but he's a very, very trusted advisor in central government and right through local government. So I'm delighted to have you in the room working through this with us, Scott, and I think you understand the pressures a lot, probably as best as anybody in terms of this sector, but how we relate to the central government as well. So I can vouch for Scott in some of the pressure cooker situations we've been in through the years in a number of places, including some very challenging spaces where local government, iwi and central government have intersected as well. So welcome to the chamber, e hoa, and I'm looking forward to working with you and the work that you can help us and Lisa do.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you reading the email that I sent you about me. Thanks, Steph. Today, the information in this part and what I share to you, again, this is for your consideration. So I'm pleased take it in that context. This is not direction, it's information for you to consider. Over this next little while, I'm going to prompt you through questions. And what I would ask of you as elected members, be open. Obviously, it's a public environment, so be as open as you wish to be. I need to understand what the challenges are. If we can avoid jumping into the fixes and the solutions right now, if there are some very obvious ones that you're hearing from the community, absolutely, I'd love to hear them. But what are the challenges? I'd prefer if we don't debate the challenges, and this is definitely not about putting up evidence or justifying positions or against people. So if I just lay it in that context for you all. If it's okay, I will be, I know it's recording there anyway, but I will be recording using an AI device. It is locked down to my hard drive only, so all of the information is supplied just to me. It doesn't go to a database in the States. I'm really keen to understand, and without, you can go in any order of the questions that are on the screen in front of you, but even without looking at those ones, I'm really keen to understand from you, what are the key challenges that your community talk to you about when you see them at the supermarket, at the sausage sizzle, or wherever it might be? What do they come to you and say to you? What are the main things that they are facing that you can impact on? Chair, I'll take direction as for how you want to run it, but otherwise I'll just go around the room if that's okay.
Yeah, go around the room's great, or hands are going up already, whichever you prefer. I'm in your hands.
Okay, perfect, councillor. I'll go with whoever I see and then I'll come, so I'll go Deputy Mayor, sorry, first.
Nice to meet you, Scott. Thank you for coming along. One of the things that I hear the most is explanation of decisions that we have made in publicly excluded meetings and the frustration that the community feels when perhaps they would have liked to have had more information, but it has been publicly excluded. And often there are really good reasons for that, but that's something that people say to me, oh, how did you reach that? And who voted for that? And all those kind of things. It's a really tricky space, I acknowledge that. But yeah, that's something that people do ask me a lot about.
When they ask you that question, does it seem obvious to you? When they ask you that question, does it seem obvious to you on why they're asking it? Like, is it a surprise to you that they're asking, that they didn't know some of the information?
Not really. Most of the topics are very topical in the community. So they're things that perhaps they've seen a media release about, but they actually want to know more. They want to go into it deeper and find out more about what happened. And I guess, you know, you explain the reasons for them being publicly excluded, but people still want to know more. So that's something that I certainly hear about.
Okay, perfect. And sorry, one further question if I can. Do you feel that you then have the information to respond to them in the right way?
Yeah, I mean, you can give people a high level overview of what happened, but obviously you can't go too much deeper for the very reasons that you're publicly excluded. So it can be frustrating for them, and often people don't accept the reasons why you've been in a publicly excluded meeting. But yeah, it's a tough one. I don't know what the solution is, but it's what I hear.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I've got an example that I'm going to come back to after, which I think touches on your comment. Appreciate that.
I've got more too, so I'll just wait my turn when you come back around.
Okay, absolutely. Sorry, councillor, I saw your hand first.
Yeah. My point was exactly what Joe has said. And I think we have to respect that the discussions were in committee. And so we are bound by our code of ethics to actually respect that. And hence, in many aspects of the decision, we're unable to provide the background because that decision was in committee. But it is a big challenge. And of course, that challenge is emphasized by the social media writers.
In what respect, councillor? Can you just talk me through that further?
The comments that are made on social media reflect the fact that they don't understand it, and they say, oh, another example of council doing things in secret. They think that we're doing it in secret because we don't want them to know what the discussion was about. And it's not that. There was something about the discussion that had a reason for it being there. Does that make sense?
It does, thank you. Yep. Sorry if I saw another hand for the side first. Yeah, go.
Yeah, as a new councillor, a lot of things that are coming down from the central government and financial, legal restrictions that we've got from their planning and that, and we seem to be getting the thick end of the stick, and we seem to be used by central government for that purpose. I'm just wondering, is there any way that you suggest to contradict that?
It's probably called November the 10th, after a couple of days after said election, councillor. Look, can I just hold that thought? I'll come back to it on my observation because it ties directly with what the Deputy Mayor asked. But I think your point is a very good one. You're in a time where you are, as I open with, you are the political football for the next 6 months or so.
I think an issue that I find is that it's quite hard to understand, quite hard to explain sometimes when you think you've done the right thing, we think we've made a good decision because topics are complex and there's a lot that has to be gone into, which, you know, even we're struggling with, some of us new ones, I'm mid-IM, and then you, and then the public is, why the hell did you vote for that? You know, why did you let that happen? And the problem I know is getting all that information into a package that someone wants to understand and can understand, I think is, I'm probably trying to solve it. But yeah, I think that's an issue. You know, people don't see the full extent of this, sometimes the decisions, and they don't seem logical to their minds.
Is there an example that you can talk to in particular?
I can bring one up really easily, and that's the Cambridge Water Tower situation. Exactly. So you know, my own colleague told me off for not going far enough or something, but you know, and then the people in the public going, why the hell did you vote to spend all that money on that when you could just knock it over? So they got that far into the story, which said how much and what we're going to do, and then forgot the rest, which tried to explain why we had to. And that's it, because to them it's like it's a problem, costs a lot of money, bowl it. And I mean, we thought that.
Before I move on to any other subjects and questions, is there anyone that wants to add to that point? Because I do have a view on this one. I'd be really keen. Sorry, your worship. Yeah.
Scott, yeah, just on that, I think it's really making sure that what goes in the public excluded, we have really litmus tested. Because part of the problem there is when stuff's in public excluded, you can't talk about all the rationale and reason. You can only go as far as the outcome, and the outcome is real high level. I understand if it can be frustrating, and it's having tools to try and deal with that. Yeah.
It's interesting that when I was going through the campaigning, no one was worried about public exclusion. No one mentioned it at all. So I don't see that as an issue that's coming from ratepayers that are talking to me. But what they do say is that council doesn't listen. And that was the message I was getting time and time again. Don't even bother to try because they won't listen. So that's the issue that I was hearing. And I just want to go make a couple of comments about your presentation to date. So in terms of the satisfaction survey, council's been bad for a long, long time. well before water and sector reform. So it hasn't been affected by those things at all. But it was 40% and it went down to 20% over a period of 3 years. I'd be really, really interested to look at 3 years ago when it was 40%, look at 20% and say, look at the data and say, well, where are the areas where we're losing that trust? So I think the public excluded thing is because the lack of trust was there, and then it just, because they lacked the trust, then they used that. But from what ratepayers have told me, that has not been a standout issue in my mind.
I'm going to come to the survey in about 3 slides, so I will go directly into the points that you're asking about, councillor. And maybe this is for all the new councillors who come in, but the perception of council when you were outside the building and coming into the building, can you give me some insights? Is it different or?
So coming into it, I think I've got a lot of hope that things will get better. And because I think a lot of it was cultural change that was required, people's attitudes, etc. But work has started to occur to restructure the organisation and also making sure that the right culture's there. So I hold on to the hope that things will change because of that. And I also see behaviours like for Mike does a weekly Facebook thing, that communication, the actions of the councillors in the room and talking to people and turning up at events, etc., and having a positive attitude about things. I think that helps as well. So yes, I'm hopeful that we're heading in a right direction.
Sorry, I was going to come to you, councillor.
Just on that, on the held in public excluded, there is a difference in their reaction dependent upon what the reason is that's given. And one of the reactions that I hear a lot is that if the public exclusion is for the purpose of enabling full and frank discussion, which we do use on a number of occasions, then there is that reaction to say, but surely that's what we want to hear. We want to hear what the opinion is of the councillors in making their decision. So that's, I think, that reason gives more reaction because we're trying to cover up what individual points of view are in that debate.
Yeah, if I can just on this one, and it is, and granted these are my observations, not based on having feet on the ground in the community during that debate. But what it felt like in the environment scan is that council's position went out and was quite clear to the community and what they thought. Now, they might not have liked it. Some of the community might not have liked it. Others might have. Others had very strong views on what else should have happened. But it reached a position. And then it got to the long-term plan and the discussion following the public excluded and media coverage. And the public or members of the public said, where did this come from? And why didn't we get an opportunity to have a say on that? We've got an opportunity to say on that one, but not on this. And so that often then impacts on trust because your community, councillor, you're right, the community are saying you do not listen to us. The community are saying you ask us to input on something that you've already made a decision on. They are saying that, well, why would I bother giving you information if it's only going to be used, will never be used? In fact, it might be a totally different decision. And when you are in a place where trust has been impacted and people have trust and confidence concerns about an organisation, you're constantly looking for the red car, right? So if you're going out and you've never, in your mind, you start thinking, oh, I want to look at all the red cars, you will see red cars. Now, that's what happens in community engagement as well. Okay, and so you're constantly looking, and that's public nature. You're starting to constantly look for things that just reinforce what your view might be. And there will be various reasons of why you have to do publicly excluded or not. I think one of the challenges that you will face is then how timely is the information that can then go out to the public? Because you've only got one shot at going back out to them to provide that rationale, because otherwise it'll go straight over their heads, or they won't like the decision, or they'll have various different views as they did on that one in particular. So there are process parts there that we need to deal with. There are parts that this table or these tables have to deal with in that type of event. And then the public, one of the things that we will need to do with the public, the uncertainty can often come on, well, what influence do I actually have? And so if we are not setting expectations over what the influence is, we're asking people to be involved in a consultation, and they may feel that they're going to have influence. Where in actual fact, when some of the decisions that you will make, they might not be able to the extent that they might expect, right? And we have to be really clear then from the outset, well, here is how this works, here is the process, and here are the points that public will be able to input to. And every case will be different, obviously, and people are not necessarily going to like that. But unless we're managing the expectations with people, we're going to fall into this trap all the time. And people will feel like, and they do feel like, one of my observations to Lisa was that you feel, or the community feels disconnected from you. They feel, this is my observation, they feel like this building and your other buildings make decisions that they're not involved in other than paying their rates to. And that is not, it's a broad statement, but that's not true, because you do have the ability, they do have the ability to input. Now, granted, that's not going to be in everything, I acknowledge that. But you do actually run a lot of really good consultation processes. I think the challenge is that when we're consulting on a, or we're seen to be consulting on a decision, not on an opportunity to input. So, sorry, I was going to try and keep that brief, but sorry, Chair.
I was just going to say, Scott, I think if you're happy to keep going around the room, it'd be good. And that works really well with this group to do roundtables, okay? Yeah, I'm probably got chair fatigue at this time of the day, so just sitting here letting you do it.
I'd just like to add to what Scott was saying about level of influence and community participation. That's one of the key drivers behind us moving to IAP2, so the International Accredited Professional Participation Framework that we've been using for Cambridge Connections, is to make that very clear from the outset, so that, that the expectation is set.
Sorry. E mihi nui kia koe I te rangatira, te arawa, nā te pukanga, nā te whakaue, nau mai hara mai ki tō tātou whare. Yeah, listening to all my peers here, they have different probably kōrero to what I bring, and always what I hear out there from particularly Māori communities is non-visibility. What they see, they don't see that they can engage in what we kind of put out. But I know that, and I say that with respect, knowing that there is a long distrust of the communities, that the voice that I bring through. One of the things that I picked up specifically from the Māori Women's Welfare League while I was out there is they said to me, who comes and talks to us? Who are the people that comes to talk to us when you guys want us to do these things, but we're not included in your marketing. We're not part of that face. That when you're going out there with your partners, we're not visual. So that's probably the biggest feedback that I get. I mean, Māori communities don't trust authorities because the authorities haven't looked after them for years. So that's just a normal standard distrust thing that I think is in the communities. And of course, it's something that I'm really passionate about, around looking about how we would lift engagement and as well as voting in the whole scheme of things. So I think hopefully, I think mine's a pretty basic and normal kind of things that come out.
That's great. Can I just ask you before you turn that off, what does visibility look like to you?
Visibility, and I'll say this with a declaration of being part of Massey University's marketing team with a few people you probably know from out of there. Things are a lot browner. Yeah, that's the best way, that is the fastest way I can put it. Yeah. Tēnā koe, tēnā kōrua. Thank you for today.
Look, some of the things I hear are actually more structural in terms of, like lately it's been quite a bit about all the townhouses going up in my area, and the effect it's having on my well-being and that sort of thing. And I'm leaving town, or I'm not coming back, sort of thing, and the rationale around that, and just that they understand that it's, or a lot of the people I talk to actually understand it's imposed, but they probably don't understand that council probably have very few levers to actually deal with that. That's the bit they don't understand. And the other one I've got is just, I've just put it here, closing the feedback loop of, hey, engage, just want to hear back. You know, want to hear back. Acknowledgement is the first thing, want to hear back, and then the answer, whether I like it or not. And you sort of talked about communicating straight away, but I put in here that communication needs to be multifaceted and over time. And there's some challenges we've got coming up, and you've mentioned Waikato Waters, for instance. There's other people around, you know, that these new rates bills are coming up. You can't send out something once and think people understand it. It's, you know, that's, yeah, communicating once is not communicating to me. And I think public could probably pick up on that. So area for improvement, maybe.
Great points. Thank you, Mayor.
It's interesting. I think people have very long memories, and people around this table know that I entered this process when the biggest decision that was impacting in Cambridge, which was where a new bridge would go, came out, authorised by this group. They ended up deciding where it was going to be with a preordained decision, and they hadn't spoken to a single resident. Those memories stick around for a long period of time, and people say, if you can make something that fundamental, we really don't trust you. So I think sort of, you know, there are some decisions that are bigger than others, and that was a huge one.
I have seen comments on that, councillor, so it does come up, and you're right, and I'm part Scottish as well, so I have a very long memory as well, but that does come up. And I think, as I noted before, when you're in a trust deficit, people constantly like to look for things.
So there's a tried and true sort of rule that said you need 21 behaviour changes with a positive outcome in a row before people take that as a standard reaction. So in a way, I think Cambridge Connections #2, where they entered into a significant consultation process, has reduced that deficit, but it's still, you know, they're still going, what are they going to do now?
No, that's great feedback. I think the other point I'd make sometimes is that even if we're saying things that people don't like or might not like, the vacuum of not saying it has a greater impact on it, right? So if they feel like they haven't heard it and they haven't been involved in it, that's worse. And, you know, we've, a number of areas that I've been involved in recently, we've had to say to people, you might not like this, we don't like it, but here's the deal. And you have to walk, but that's a number of times that you have to say that to actually be able to build trust back into people. Yeah, one good news story is not going to change the game on things. I think with Councillor G.
Yeah, well, I think you're a bit wrong with some of your statements there as well, FYI.
It was approved by this entity.
Okay, well, I'm going to agree to disagree on that one. So
it wasn't going to be policy.
No, but yeah, but anyway, we've tried really hard to negotiate, well, to engage with our people and our ratepayers and things. Like our comms team has
done fantastic work over the years. But it's one of those things that, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And I think it's just and I'm not so hung up on the public satisfaction survey because it's still the silent majority is still happy with what we do. And you can get hung up on small numbers, but actually at the end of the day, the majority of people think that we're doing a good job because we don't have the protests in the street or, you know, the ratepayers march that we had like many years ago. Yeah, and so I think it's just one of those things. No matter how hard we try to make ourselves attractive, and people want to engage with us, you know, and we do good events. Yeah, people just don't want to engage. So I mean, and that's their right to do that. I mean, we're not particularly sexy or fun, are we? It's like who's going to come and spend time with council? So yeah.
Thank you, councillor.
As it was going around the table, I was thinking, oh yeah, they covered quite a lot of ground here that I agree with, but actually Marcus said exactly what I was going to say largely, which is I agree with many of the comments around the table. But I do always have this, it's actually what Dean would often say when we're thinking about engagement, which is often people, it doesn't matter how many times you tell people, they're not interested until they are. Mm-hmm. And you can try as hard as you like. And so I think that's very challenging. And I think to your question earlier around what do you see on either side, certainly getting closer to council, and admittedly we don't interact with, you know, the all of the staff within the council, but most of the stuff that is brought to this table or any other committee, I just see a lot of people working very hard trying to do the right thing. And so, yeah, I think there's I think there's a few little things sometimes where, and I shared an email with Lisa just the other day around this. I think there's an occasion where we need to be very conscious of that perception in the community of how we are perceived in all of our communications. And there is a perception that has been described already that we are telling, you know, we make decisions and we tell people what to do as opposed to engaging. But I also think there's ask yourself, right? I've just been away on vacation and I stayed at 3 or 4 different hotels. Did I make a point of going to the hotel that I enjoyed and saying, I really enjoyed staying at your hotel? No, I didn't. Did I make a point of going to the hotel when I didn't have a good experience and telling them about it? I did. So I think there's also, which, I mean, that's just the nature of public engagement and dealing with the public. But yeah, for me, I don't know that there's any insight I offer you there at all, actually, Scott. From one Campbell to another, I'm not Campbell anymore, but anyway, that's a story for another day. Yeah, I think to a certain degree, no, I'm moving to solutions. I'll stop.
Well, maybe hold that thought because I'm going to ask you to think about some things that you do want to see come very shortly. It's a good point. I think it's worth reinforcing. And one of the things is that in public sector, no one's going to pat you on the back for doing the job that we're here to do. But they will tell you off when you're not doing something. That's public life. Sorry, any further comments?
I had another one, but I'm also happy just to move on if you want to carry on from this. You go
Councillor
first,
Andrews.
please.
That's me? Okay, yeah. So I'm a rural ward councillor. Yeah, so for me, I'm actually getting a lot of people come to me, they've requested something from council to be fixed and they don't even get an acknowledgement, any response. Yeah, so I've had about 3 of those just recently. Yeah, and I find that in the rural communities that I mix in, they just say no money's going to be spent on anything that will benefit us. It all goes to Cambridge and Te Awamutu. So when they come and consult, what's the point? It's never going to come and benefit me and the decision's already been made. So I definitely hear that. I must say though that we were the subject of an emergency, you know, a major weather intense event, and that actually got really good response because especially from those affected. They've given really glowing praise to me on how staff and elected members stepped up and communicated. In fact, I think that has really raised council's profile. Yeah, they just think when we needed you, you were there, and you not only just did it once, you kept back, coming back, checking up on us and things like that. So that's been really great. A challenge for my communities is that we don't even get a local newspaper delivered anymore. So they probably, so I know I blame Dean, yeah. So that where do they get the information from? Some people don't get any information. Some rely on social media and some their key contacts. But I think a lot of people in the rural area use antennae. I think, yeah, a lot of them do. But that's not really a news feed, is it? No. And I don't know how many people actually subscribe to your, your council news feeds that you do. But I just think just informing people of some of the minor stuff that's happening. So that's why I haven't had any complaints about the public excluded stuff. I don't think they even know we're doing it. Yeah.
I kind of got missed out there, so I'll just jump in. 100% of people who come to me with problems always about sloppy service delivery. No one complains to me about rates. No one complains to me about public excluded. They just complain to me about sloppy service delivery.
I was just going to say, when it comes to the public excluded, the only time I see that, it's not called public excluded, is it? It's just when you see something on, I used to get the loonies in my office when I was an editor, or they've just heard me. Hello. Or see the Facebook, etc. And it wasn't called public excluded, it's just they're in secret again. And it was a different thing. It's a more conspiratorial type accusation against us, rather than trying to make good decisions in an open way, or keeping important information safe from the public. So, yeah.
In saying that too, Scott, there's a couple of us around this table that kind of, let's just say, grandstand and help that problem too at times, because of the way that we kind of, and I'm going to put myself in there too, the old popularity stakes out there, and especially on really passionate subjects. Some of us around the table can talk to media and do things that I think don't help that perception stuff out there. So yeah, I think we're part of the problem.
And I will talk a little bit to the many hats that you wear, and the impact that that has, particularly on the perception of council. I've heard a couple of, and sorry, just before I move on, any further? Sorry, Chair, I'm doing a poor job.
Now, just on disenchantment with councils, over the years, I've seen it grow with the wealth of planning and compliance and costs that have gone with it. So every year you get more plans, you get more costs, you get more red tape. And if you're from a farming background, I think you'll know where I'm coming from. It's got to the stage where you can't even put a spade in the ground.
I will ask about some of the things that you think are opportunities shortly, but I just want to just feedback quickly to some of the things I heard. And it's interesting because you reflect what the community sees and has said, which should be a surprise. But I heard service delivery, so that's an area which is obviously that comes through from community. They said that in the recent surveys, which are not fixed by comms, can be lost with comms, but service delivery we have to do as service delivery first, with really good input through to comms team, so then it can be comms out to people. The other one is around we're at distance from each other. So while we're talking about publicly excluded or in secret meetings and things, this comes back to my point that the community feels an us and them. And at times I think it does come through even within council as a bit of an us and them, whether it's here and out there. I think that the other one, the point that came through from you, but it also comes in the community, people say, I didn't know, no one told me, or I can't understand this. Or I don't actually even have the resources and the connections. So those are all really good points, and thank you for bringing them up. If I can change your mindset through to opportunities, and what, other than a new newspaper, what are some things that you would like to see through our communications, your communications? What's important to you? You talk about visibility, for example. I think that's a key one. What else, Councillor?
Probably a bit of honesty and sort of, I think I still feel, despite the fact that comms have tried to change things, it still feels a bit sort of statement-like, there's not a lot of feel that, we understand you. It's a pushing out information as opposed to some perception that we understand where they're at, which is your classic press statement. And a bit boring.
My one's a simple one, and it's keeping the Facebook comment options open. And Lisa and I often have conversations about this, and I really respect her professional opinion on it. But I think for me, it is so important for people to be able to have their say. I also respect the fact that I can say that and then I go home and forget about it, and Lisa and her team are monitoring sometimes very abusive messages. But in times where council has turned those comment options off, I feel like people have not had an opportunity, and it must be so frustrating for them to want to have an outlet and not to be able to do that. And on recent posts where they have been opened, some of the comments are really unhelpful, but it's still been a way for people to just get off their chest, and then most of the time they move on. There's obviously a time and place where it's appropriate, but for me, that's something that I'd really like to see go forward in the strategy, that it's just an open policy. I think, I say this respectfully, sometimes I feel council can just be a whisker sensitive to community comments, because sometimes they can be, robust and firm, but I'd like just to see it open all the time.
Thank you. That's good insight, and haven't been privy to your conversations, but it's a real balancing act. But I think the points that you make are valid also. I think, and we're having a similar conversation earlier before coming into the room. So noted, and we'll make sure we canvass that. Thank you.
I think the sensitivity comes from actually being beaten by the stick by too many times and being the victim of that the last 12 months. It's like, it does get to the stage where it's just like, oh my God. So I get, I get why we turned them off. So yeah, but it's good that it is enabled again now. I guess my other comment is that we tend to get sidetracked on the minority of people that make the most noise. As I said, like the majority of people are fine. And we have we have a few names crop up all the time, and we should actually just not get obsessed about what they're saying and be able to just put them to the side.
Yeah, I've got a view, and I'm going to hold it back, other than to say it's a very fine balance. But that is a place where people communicate, and but then if we are leaving them on, we need to ensure that our expectations are met as well too, so that doesn't just fall on the comms team to do things. But it's an important part of comms, and it's a real balancing act. Councillor, I saw your hand.
Three down here.
Sorry.
Hey, Scott, do you want me to do crowd control on questions, or do you want to do this yourself? Because
I'm happy, Chair, if you like.
you choose. Do you want to keep doing it?
I'll take it, Chair.
Okay, cool. You got three down here. 1, 2, 3.
Perfect.
Me?
Joe, you go first, and then we'll go
Ladies
that end to
first.
this end.
Ahead of you, Roger. I think for me, what I really like how Lisa's done a little bit of a pivot, because I see that other mayors are now copying Mike on the little Friday snippets that he does. I see Tim's doing it. Rodney's even chucked it out there. I think even old John even rose up and did it the other. Oh, Puku, Gary Petley did it. I was like, whoa, we are. So, I mean, sometimes I've got to say they are a little bit cheese, but that's because we know him. But I really for me, I think we have to pivot, because we have to do things different. We can't do things the old way. And I really love the difference of bringing something new and trying other new things. I know these, not a lot of us like to be camera fronting, but if it's cheaper and it means it gets us traction and gives us a bit of trust back, yeah, I think we all should have to do some stuff every now and again when Lisa asks us. So, yeah, I think it's opportunity, lots of opportunity.
Perfect, thank you. So we'll just go down the table because I think all of you would say, but Sam.
So I like being quoted by Ian. I thought that was good. And I did give my opinion about dealing with the media when I was first elected, which I won't say now because it's live. But, you know, but the point I made, I guess, is that no one cares until they care. So, you know, we are challenged by our newspapers, which are our traditional method. I'll sort of just leave it at that, except a lot of our stuff on the Waikato Times ends up behind a paywall, and the same with some of the stuff through NZME and the Herald. So that's tricky for readers. We don't have a huge readership of either of those dailies in my part by comparison. And I think what Dale Marie was saying, we've got to try something different. And I think we should almost think back like we were campaigning so that it's more face-to-face. So we're seeing people, whether it's using the camera or whether we're just out there like we're campaigning with a message. We've got to take that opportunity all the time, know what we're talking about. So comms has got to back us up, material that they can go to, maybe add I'm solving the problem, maybe an antenna, add a link that shows where they can get, that antenna shows that we also have news feeds where they can get updates if they're already using it. Because obviously we can't rely on the other traditional ways. And some of us, like me, I have Facebook, but I don't want to use it. You know, for this type of getting the message out. So I think that's my thing. We've got to probably do more ourselves up front.
Perfect, thank you. Shane?
I think if we're talking about the opportunities, and I think I was talking before about people's comments not being listened to. Let's start listening to them. And a lot of the things they're saying, they're actually quite easy to fix. And we talked, when we did a workshop, we talked about quick wins. And the quick wins that were in my mind were those things that I know that people have been complaining about for years and they don't seem to get any traction on. None of them cost a hell of a lot of money. So just by doing that alone, we will be seeing to listen and respond. And, you know, we're doing it just simple things like getting rid of the bloody pots that people have been complaining about for the last 5 or 6 years. We're going to do it. And it's a few of us are going to do it because we just know immediately we're going to have a positive response. So I think it's noting what the things are that they're unhappy about, that they haven't been listened to, fix it, get those quick wins, and so they show that we actually are listening and we do care.
Great, I'm just going to come here, Councillor, and then come back to you. So should we just go down the table? And then
That's all right, no worries. Look, I really support the new initiatives that we're doing, particularly those video clips that are going out. I think they're really, really good. The personal approach of telling the message, I think, is great. But I really sympathise if you in Parongia don't have a local newspaper. And Dean, I know what your views are on the local newspaper, but I'm just going to reflect some of my age group's concern, because many of them out there don't have the technology. They're not keyed in to these new media. Well, they're not new media, of course, they've been around for ages, but to them, it's a foreign language. And I think that the opportunities there for us to use that local media to get the message out to that group of our community that are not getting the message from any of the other media that we're using. So although I think it's good to have these initiatives, we've got to remember that there are those group out there that can't access it.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Councillor.
you just follow on from Roger, and the papers, they always seem to focus on what's sensational and what sells papers, but they never look at the facts that behind it. And I don't know how we change that perception. We're told, oh, the buck stops with us, but in fact, it goes right back to central government, and that's where it comes from. And I don't know about everyone else here, but I just think we're a punching bag for central government.
Journalism took a dip about 16 years ago, councillor.
I did the maths, yeah. Look, I think we've taken some of the opportunities already. Actually, back on the campaign trail, many of us, myself included, talked about better summaries. And so, yeah, Mike's videos, and each of the chairs do a video after each of the committee meetings, which I think is really accessible for people. I think authenticity, probably, like, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a CE of a large international company today, and we hadn't spoken for a little while. She was asking, you know, I'm a new councillor, been there since October. So Anne, what do you think about this council thing? And I think it was, you know, in talking with that, it surprised her when I shared how we were inducted as a council, because I don't think that's usual, I would guess. And so we spent a bunch of time as elected members talking with each other and thinking about our strategy and getting aligned. And so I think we, you know, there's, to that message, you need to tell people, you know, tell people it once, tell them it twice, tell them it again. And we actually had a petition here on a topic a couple of months back. Maybe that wasn't months. Anyway, and it was very good. We had, you know, it was good public interaction. She said, God, the lady said, gosh, I'm getting sick to death of telling people about this thing. And I'm like, if you're getting sick to death of telling them, you're probably just about to get somewhere. And so I think that's my point here. I will weave this back together, I promise, is I trust the people around this table to talk about what we're doing. And so I think communicating authentically is something that we should leverage. And I'm going to immediately turn around and say, but I think we also, with those media releases that we do, which I think are really good, we need to make sure that they're always accurate, because there's certainly been a few instances where we've always caught them in the drafting, but there's been some instances where there was some pretty lazy drafting that, had it gone out, would just have been wrong. And I also think it would be really useful, and I suspect this is somewhere on your to-do list, to sort of have some themes. You know, yes, we can be authentic, but that doesn't mean that we can't talk to consistent themes. That's that tell them it once, tell them it twice, tell them it again thing, because it might feel kind of boring to us, but to the points that various people have made around this table, people aren't always paying attention. And to use Dean's catchphrase, they don't care until they care. So you've got to tell them it multiple times. So if we can close in on those themes, that would be my way of thinking around how we have that consistency of message.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, you wish I saw your hand up.
I know newspapers are old fashioned, but some of us are old fashioned too. And that face to face, for me, it's still the best thing out. If you go back to that campaign, you know, people sort of said, oh, he's going to turn up here once every 3 years. And so it's one thing to say, no, I won't. And it's another thing to actually turn back up. And I think that some of the difference at this council is, you know, we are conscious of and doing the best we can with the time that's available to actually do what we said we've done. And I think that whole sleeping at night thing, you know, if you can sleep at night and be genuine to what you said you think you might better deliver, and put your hand up and go, I said this and it didn't happen and this is why. Accept it or not, I accept it and I can move on. So it actually personally makes life quite easy. So this whole pressure thing that's up there when you first started it, I thought that's not a word I use on myself. you get up each day, you try and do the best you can, you go to bed, because I've got a family and whānau and everything else in my life. So, you know, I think you've got to keep it a bit real too, around the noise and the rhetoric of, did I get up today, do the best I could? Did I make the best decisions I could? And when you didn't, you put your hand up. And the more you get it wrong, the easier it is to put your hand up. Yeah. Well, it sort of is, you know, when you've had to apologise to a number of people over your life, it does get easier. Yeah, and look, and also back to Joe's point about the comms thing around the Facebook thing, and I'm really pleased. You know, it took a little bit of time to obviously get the procedures and protocols in place for, you know, at least from your team to stand that up, but it's something we said we would do because we listened to our communities and we did it, and it's still there through the hard times, through the, you know, the rating, 10.7% rate increases through the water towers and everything that's going to come in front of us. But it's if people are respectful, there's no issue. If you're an individual and you're not respectful, chopped. And I can live with that. You know, so I don't mind seeing this comment's been deleted, because I know it's been deleted for a good reason. Because someone just has had a little brain explosion or whatever. If they went back an hour later, they might write a different comment. So I think it is really important to engage multifacetedly. And as we've said, engaging once really isn't effective engagement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I do feel like I know you somewhat from your regular updates and your video comments.
Yeah, look, this authentic engagement is huge for me, and a little bit of a critique of our comms approach to date. It's got better, but it still doesn't feel genuine enough for me. I know we've been doing these profiles of ourselves. I wrote this profile. It did get edited. Anything that wasn't sort of hyper positive got taken out. And I read it and went, yeah, it's not exactly what I said. And so I do think, don't take this personally, Lisa, I do think comms always have a marketing aspect. And personally, I don't like it. There's a big difference in marketing and comms. I react against marketing, but I really respond well to comms. So yeah, really authentic communication, and there are a lot of good people around here who can communicate really well. So the more we can sort of leverage that and be authentic, so that's first for me. And second, closing the loop is really, really important. You know how I said everyone's complaining to me about poor service delivery. I don't know if this is true or not, but they always say they logged everything, they keep ringing and they never hear back. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, it's a problem. And back to something you said, Scott, earlier, that's the worst thing when people don't hear from you. Like, you can hear back, yeah, we know that's a problem, but we can't fix it for 3 years. That is better than not hearing back. So I don't know if it's true, but I hear it so often, it really winds me up. This is the old, I logged it 100 times on an antenna, I never heard back sort of scenario. So those are my two solutions.
Thank you, Chair. Did you, Councillor?
I was just saying that sort of in recent examples, when I've been catching up with people exactly that, you know, I've actually asked Lisa to sort of look into sort of some case studies, because a lot of people have said, you know, nobody ever responds. You know, I know in my experience last year, you know, people said, 5 or 6 people said to me, I've been in contact with council and nothing happens. And yet when, you know, supposedly we dug into the detailed, nobody had communicated to council about the fact that berms hadn't been mowed in Elf Street. And I know 5 or 6 people who clearly phoned and they said nothing happened. So there's a bit of a mismatch between what people are saying and supposedly the inside information that we have. And quite honestly, I prefer to believe our residents rather than necessarily our own internal systems, which is probably, you know, maybe pretty harsh, but I think, you know, that's reality.
I've gone way over the time that I said I was going to for the listening session, but that's fine because I was listening. A couple of quick points if I can before jumping on to the next slides, unless anybody wants to add further to comments. This is one of the hardest jobs in an organisation, in any organisation, and Lisa and I worked together in a previous life, but then also from what I've seen over the last couple of months, one of the challenges I think for you as an organisation, and particularly at these tables, will be when we get to the next step and bring a strategy back to you, taking on board the things that you've said, we will have to ask you where your priorities are going to go. And you are going to have trade-off conversations because each of the things that you've spoken through, although all valid, become resource intensive at some point in time. And whether that's social media or face-to-face or regular updates, again, all of them very, very valid and have the place. But that comes at a trade-off discussion through Steph and the senior exec team and then at your level as well. So again, we'll take those all into consideration and bring them back. I think a couple of things that I heard in particular, the care and integrity piece, I'm going to talk about that quickly now. Chair, I don't know, do you normally take breaks during these workshops or you just carry on? Thank you, Chair.
5 minute, just going to ask the room 5-minute break. You've been sitting a long time. Sitting in the new smoke.
In your hands, go for it. Absolutely, 5 minutes, perfect. Thank you, Chair. Chair, there is a slide about halfway through the deck. With your grace, I'd ask I will skip it, but I would like to talk to council about it at the end. But it's got sensitive information not pertaining to this council, but it is something that I think would be worth sharing with you, if that's okay. Perfect. Thank you for all those insights. As I talked about at the start, they'll be taken into account as we work through the drafting of the strategy. We'll get further insights from inside the organisation, as we talked about, and then we'll go externally as well too. Lisa, we're talking to local board chairs. And then we're going to talk to some key stakeholders in the community. So please, if you do have people who you would like us to talk to in particular, let us know who they are, please. I'm going to just replay back to you. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this because you know a lot of the numbers in particular. And you've just touched on a number of these points anyway. But when you look at what helps build trust, competence. So the things that people expect you to do are done. And they're done in a way that they might expect it to. So if the booms are getting long, they might expect them to be cut. For 3.5 years, I was a fly-in, fly-out executive with Auckland Transport. So I know what it's like to be inside an organisation that has huge service delivery challenges. One of the things we did there with Auckland Transport came back to the comment, Shane, I think that you made earlier, which was we'd spent too much time looking in and building things. And the idea was if you build it, people will come. And so when I went into the organisation, I said the people who matter are the ones out there. Let's go and figure out what's important to them and then how we can fix those things pretty quickly. I was pretty sceptical on our ability to change the reputation at Auckland Transport. We were sitting on 21% in the reputation score. We were only beaten, I think, by, in fact, we were beaten by everybody other than one organisation who we were just in front of. Last reputation score, which came out about 2 weeks ago, put us at 64%. So over the 3 years, now that wasn't done just through comms and engagement. It played a massive part in it, don't get me wrong. And we had to make changes to how we were doing comms and engagement, but we put a laser focus on what the community wanted, what they needed. And there's a subtle difference in there, but then delivering on it and doing it fast. And so, but that forced really significant trade-off discussions as well. So you can get there, right? I'm not somebody who will be putting a strategy in front of you that is built on spin or anything along those lines. You don't get there by winning it unless it's got integrity around it. People need to believe that what they are hearing and what they are seeing, because if they don't, you'll go backwards even faster. People need to feel like they've been heard. And as you pointed out, Deputy, the challenge at times is we just have to then grow a thick skin to it because it is important for people then to make those comments. That comes with a whole bunch of challenges for us in the comms side of things, but it is an important part of the community engagement side. I was going to ask you to have a look at where you think we might be weakest in those areas, but you've touched on them already, so I'll carry on. I looked at the nuances that were in your resident survey, and as you pointed out earlier, there was a decline over a long period of time. And there was a jump back around 2023. Now, this is not unusual amongst public organisations across the country and actually across the world. Something major happened in March 2020 that had an impact on every one of us. And I don't think we can say that word anymore, but our expectations as a public rose very, very quickly. Transparency was being asked for at a level that goes beyond what normal transparency would even look like. In fact, people were asking for things which didn't really make sense. And that was an effect of that period. Now, that's not to say that there haven't been things there where I think the council could have been telling the story in a different way. I think closing the loop, I think I heard somebody say earlier, absolutely, that's an area that I think we've got an opportunity to work on, because that goes again to the trust point. If I feel like I'm inputting, but I'm not, I don't know where it's going, and if I feel like I'm calling, and it might be that people are calling about the same thing over and over and over again, but they are calling. And so we need to go back to them as well. Closing the loop is extremely important. We have a baseline now, and I don't know if you've got any newer numbers, but all the 25, 26 ones, but you know, we're in a fragile, I call it a fragile recovery, but it's in a recovery. I'm starting to sound like a Wellington politician. There are opportunities here for you, right? And so the building of trust and service delivery and telling a good story are things that you actually can do. But I think, Councillor Shane, as you pointed out, has been a long decline, and that is not unusual for others as well. I spoke through this, so I'm not going to spend too much time here, but trust is mostly a delivery story. You know, as one of my previous roles, as I talked about with Auckland Transport, people didn't care about what advertising was on the side of the bus. They cared whether or not the bus turned up, and whether the bus was safe and those sorts of things. That's now we all have a part to play, and I don't want to be pointing the finger just at delivery, because delivery is an all of us thing, but it is so important. The nuances that come out of, well, not even nuances, they're pretty clear, but these are the 4 areas that the community fed back as the places that they saw major concerns. Around financial management. Now, what I think is missing, and I'm going to touch on this soon, is you've actually got a pretty good reputation for long-term planning on things. The way that it impacts on people and the what's in it for me, I suspect is the part that's not landing with people. Now, the hard job for you in councils is that a lot of stuff you do and a lot of stuff you build, they don't see, they'll never touch, and they might never read the library book or whatever. I drove around here and I drove around Cambridge before getting here today, and your facilities are top class. Now, they might not know that because they don't see it, they might not use it. So there's opportunity for storytelling inside there. The value for money part, and I'm not going to debate through the tower, but people will have discussion points around value for money. Was it value for money? Is it not? Again, this is what the community fed back. I think the information is clear and is easy to understand. I think we've got areas we can work in there. In touch with the community, for me, this one comes through on a range of things when I looked at it, that disconnect part. And again, I see that actually as being an opportunity, because the people are telling us what they want. And we've just got to figure out how to do that. I want to just emphasize for the part at the bottom there around the fact that the better, and I'm not hearing this from you, which is good, but simply doing better news stories won't solve our problems or the problems of the community. They are extremely important, and we need to be telling our story, absolutely. But we also need to be telling bad news stories at times to people, because it helps understand and manage expectation. But when we can start to be seen as working together well, which is built on working together well, that has an impact on trust and confidence in the community. Oh, somebody made the comment around early, and Deputy, I think it might have been you, but early is important for a couple of reasons. There's a recurring theme that comes through from the public, which is your decisions have already been made. You're coming to me for the tick at the end. That's because they perceive, well, there might be a range of reasons why that's coming through, but it's because they don't feel like they've been involved early. I think in this most recent round, you're going out and trying to engage a lot earlier on your long-term plan. And we've just got to make that a regular cadence. So if we're doing things, we've got to go early. From a comms and systems point of view, that requires this table and your exec table and other parts of the organisation to be working well together, because you can't comm something that you don't have information on. And it's one of the hardest things as a comms team, is you get told, just do some comms. It's like, comms on what? So early engagement internally means early engagement externally. And so that's something that we'll just be pushing. Oh, sorry. Okay, I think you've got this in your books now, Councillor. What residents are saying. So again, those are the top themes. And I love the point that came up earlier around key themes, and listening and responding. And I will be putting that to you as a key part of our strategies around how we show people that we're listening and responding. Those are some of the comments that came out of the survey. And I want to draw your attention not to the one at the bottom, but in particular the one just above it. So disjointed, often not complete, seems like more of an opinion from individual councillors. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this when I get to your hats and the hat you're wearing. So just hold that thought. It's not all bad, right? It's not all bad. This is a district that people choose to live in, and there is a really strong identity in this district. That comes through loud and clear from the people. You've got really highly engaged communities within themselves, inside the community itself. You've obviously got a strong and diverse economy. You've invested significantly in your assets and in some of that larger infrastructure piece, which I don't know that people know that, understand that. They might not care until they care. And I use an example of in another council or government department. I'll go government department because the council is going to be too easy to determine. Government departments will often say we're spending $120 million on this thing. Well, who cares? I don't care. Other than it's our 120 million. We're spending 120 million on this thing because it's going to help do this. Okay, now I'm starting to care. We're spending 120 million on this piece of road because it's going to double lane it and it's going to make it easier for you to get from point A to point B and shave off about 10 minutes of your travel time. Now I care. Right. The challenge that a lot of government and public departments face is we only talk about spending the $120 million. And we have to really go to the people's what's in it for me. Yeah, and for you as elected members and the face of the community, just keep that in mind. Feeding back to people what's in it for you, not what's in it for you because it sounds like we're advertising back to them, but how this impacts on you both positively. That is a good base for us to work from. The fact that there's strong identity and community. We have got a job to do to work with the community so they see us being a part of the community again. The changing landscape, I'm going to go through here a little bit fast, but please stop me if you see something you want to comment on. Fast because that's the changing landscape of the world that we're now operating in. Pace. So once upon a time when I was on TV, we had 6 p.m. till 6 p.m. It was fantastic. We had 24 hours between news cycles. Now you've got 24 seconds, if that. The pace is so fast. And silence gets filled by someone else and someone else's version. Yeah, and so at times we will be caught by the pace, and this comes back a little bit to the comments around secrecy. We have to be confident in our approval process inside council and how quick we can turn stuff around, because that's what people are expecting now. And so waiting a couple of days for a polished full press release doesn't cut it anymore. We have to constantly be updating people. That's what they're after.
I think your comments rapidly increasing. But what about the increased frequency of fake news? And, oh, okay, sorry, go on.
I'm coming to that, councillor. Good point. Tone. So, you know, off the back of March 2020, all of us inside public office need to be more aware of what the community is asking for and the tone that we are going back with. Because while we can't control how they perceive it, we at least have to be thinking about how they might perceive it. Because we can say something that might be, to us, sounds really logical and might sound fair, but to the people who are inside or outside the building, it could come across in a totally different way. And so tone is really important. It's not about spin, it's about understanding who receives the information as well. Communication is about giving and receiving. Transparency, so somebody talked about transparency earlier. That expectation of transparency is huge. The idea that, you know, we'll tell you when we've got something to tell you, that reinforces the idea that we're not sharing something with people. You're better off to say, all I can tell you at this point is this. Why? Because we haven't made that decision yet. Fragmentation, so there is no single trusted channel, and I think that's in any organisation, not yours. People will go wherever they can to find news. There's actually research that shows now, if I search for something, I feel like it's more authentic. Yeah, regardless of whether or not it is. And the problem with AI and the problem with Google is that you can search whatever you like and find something, and it might not be authentic. What that means for us, though, is that we need to take that into account, and I think it's multifaceted. So we need to be in a number of different places. Where people are, there'll be a number of people who don't like me saying this, but an algorithm is actually our first audience these days. Somebody said to me, oh, I don't use AI. And I said, well, do you use Google? And they said, yep. I said, you use AI. Google gets its information now from AI, large language models. And so we need to take that into account, because what they are doing is scraping information from everywhere. Facebook, I'm not going to go through the channels in particular, but we've got Facebook that we're working through. You'll all be, I think, really happy to be doing TikTok videos when we get to that point. Traditional media is still, for me, still important because it deals with local issues and emergencies in particular. And then face-to-face. You know, visibility, particularly when we are rebuilding trust and confidence with people, them seeing you is extremely important. Okay, this is not my saying, but I use it often, that in the absence of information, people make things up. Absolutely. So our role is to help people make up stuff that's actually accurate. And so how do we do that against a default emotion, which is now determined by research, is our default emotion is actually distrust. It's a really sad indictment on society. But when we see something, now our default emotion is to say, do I trust that? Yeah. Fear is on the rise, and so we see this constantly. You know, you don't need to sensationalize headlines when you've got wars and Ebola and whatever else that's around. I think the fear of people is actually on the rise. Businesses are more trusted than governments and local authorities. Good for business, because once upon a time it wasn't. Now, why? Because they are seen as being competent and more ethical, depending on which business, but your ability to deliver. Okay, that's where your service delivery part comes through. I'll remember for next time I come that the font size needs to be larger, but 60% of Kiwis now say that we are more divided than we've ever been before. I actually think that is probably a little bit low. for what's actually out there. How is information made and trusted? Okay, so I'm a huge advocate of AI. But there are some things that we need to deal with in AI. Anyone can produce really polished content and put it out, and it moves fast, really, really fast. AI content was going out, you remember the Bondi shootings a couple of years ago? There were AI images which were being released to the world, then picked up on BBC and CNN and all these other places within minutes of that tragedy, and they were AI generated images. They were fake, but they were being picked up and relied on by people. It is so hard now to tell the difference between real and fakes. I'll draw your attention just to the bottom left hand or right hand, depending on where you are, corner there. AI summaries are becoming the source of information. So I don't know if you've looked the last time you used Google, but when you search something on Google, it pulls up a little AI summary on the side. Yep, that is where most people will get their information from now. Yeah. Difficulty is it's AI generated. Now it does pick up information that will come from your website. I know because I Googled you. So we have to take that into account. You know, what we're doing online leaves a digital footprint. And if we're not, others are. And that's where it fills the gap. So it's really important that we're doing that. It is though, what I reinforce with people is because we are in this period of change where people are now aware of fake things happening all the time, our human voice has just become so much more important, and the authentic part of that human voice, 100%. So when people are looking at our messages, at your speeches and announcements and saying, hey, I wrote that, or that's not genuine, I don't feel it, we should take that on board. It's a signal to us, yeah, because they are wanting that human connection. It's really important.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because if you use AI, you can actually instruct AI about the tone and the integrity that's reflected in the AI. So if you've got a message that you're going out and you've actually created it around this model of trust, then AI can regenerate it.
100%. As I said, I'm a massive advocate of AI.
I didn't think that was a positive advocacy.
Oh, and so that's the flip side to it. We can use it really well. The other side is that people will use it for not good purposes. This is an actual media story. It's an actual thing. In 2016, an aircraft was stuck in Johannesburg. That aircraft was stuck in Johannesburg. One of its engines had gone down. So Qantas has 4 different aircraft that can attach a supplementary engine to it, and if they ferry them around the world when one of their planes gets stuck. Is that real, that image? Yep.
Boeing can do 3 engines.
Boeing absolutely can do 3 engines, yeah. Yep. The problem is, yeah, you're absolutely correct. Boeing is the only company that actually does it. The problem is that the extra engine sits on the left wing. It's a very good fake image of that story. And the problem, part of the information problem is that Boeing absolutely can do this. And so this got shared on a lot of very reputable aviation publications. And it wasn't until a couple of months ago people said, hang on a second, that's on the wrong wing. That's how AI works. I'm not going to go through this one. You can chat GBT yourself. You can chat GBT shortly. I'm mindful of time. Okay, the role of elected members. You are not bystanders in this council, as you well know, in the reputation, either individually or together. Now, the same seat that you sit in builds trust, or it can erode it. And so speaking with one voice when a decision is made is extremely important. Why? Because if council releases something out into the public and then they see another councillor talk against it, they start to say, as they have, because I've done the environment search on you, they say, what's going on? The council can't get it together. Who's right? What's wrong? Okay, it just starts to really erode that element of trust. Now, that's not to say that you as political leaders can't have a voice, but you as political leaders need to agree on how you do that, right? Because it's extremely important. It can erode the trust in the public. I leave that to sit with you, not to solutionise now, but it is something that I think we'll have to come and talk to you about, or talk with you about. I won't go through all of the other points there, but listening publicly is extremely important. You are going to have to put on a thick skin at times and be out there and listen to the public when they are not saying nice things, because that's their right. Yeah, that's their right as the public to do that. Being visible is extremely important. So as elected members, and one of the hats you do wear, and it's worth keeping this one in mind, when we're speaking about as council, it's as council, not us and them. And I'm not saying that this is you, but I do see this in a number of councils where it becomes this room and those rooms. And that erodes trust. Yeah. Now, you as elected members absolutely should be holding the organisation accountable, 100%. But it's how you're doing that and the way you're doing it has an impact on the way that the public pick up on it. Chair, I'm going to race through pretty fast on a couple of these. My apologies. It's a team sport. And so just to echo what I sort of spoke about then, is that we all have a role. You've got the job to set the tone and definitely carry the why we're doing the things we're doing. People will look to you. That's a rationale piece. And you are the people who should be listening to the community, 100%. Your executive and your staff are then obviously accountable for how the services are delivered. That's where the delivery side becomes extremely important, because that's where your trust is earned day to day. People won't come to you with 5,000 phone calls if the thing that they are worried about is gone. Yeah, we've got to help your team get rid of those things. Comms and engagement plays a massive part, because we have to plan and then get the message out to people. Close the loop with residents, absolutely. Comms and engagement can't do that role unless the people on the other end of that diagram are feeding in. And then our community partners, community and partners, helping them to tell the story as well too. What their story is. There's something, I haven't quite landed on it yet, but there's something in this disconnect between the public and council and how we create that connection again. Now when we can get this right, our ability then to talk to the community becomes a lot easier because we're doing things right. And they then hopefully will come on board with the journey. Chair, I am going to do this one, then I'm going to stop because it's 4 o'clock. You've already talked a little bit about this, being clear, being early, being honest, and being really deliberate about trust building. That's not about spin, and I echo that again. This is about us being out there and talking with people. We might have to get to a point where we say, actually, we haven't done everything in the best way. I'm not saying that is you, but that's an example at Auckland Transport. We had to put our hand up and say, yep, we've got to do better. We haven't listened. People start to feel that. We will take away from today, or what I hope you also then take away from today, is that we've got a fragile base, but there is the opportunity to rebuild with the community. We will all drive that trust side. Comms will earn the permission, but we have to be out there. The environment is fast and it's hard. And it's only going to get harder between now and November the 7th. You are central to that. The one voice, the why, and the visible listening part is going to be really important. Chair, I am happy to stop and then just ask for further questions, and I might want to go back to that other slide if we can.
Question, it's just look, some of the research up there, it was 100% accurate. And I guess in terms of those perception survey results, I guess my question would be, when you bring the next workshop to us, just see if there's any more up-to-date research. Yeah. That'd be great, Scott.
And if it's not finished or finalised research, I can bring you back the anecdotes and the nuances that we worked through on the environment scan. Yeah.
Very good, excellent. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I think what you're saying is absolutely hits the nail on the head. Just in terms of that, the survey, we have to remember that the N number, which is the number of samples, is very low. So I haven't done the maths on it, but it's probably plus or minus 3%. So if you have a 20% and then you have a 23 the next month, forget it. You haven't done anything, you haven't changed. So we just got to bear that in mind when we look at the numbers as well.
It's a great point. And trends, we've got to watch trends. And so the next couple of these surveys are really important to make sure the trend's still going in the right direction. But yeah, great point.
Just a quick one. Appreciate you're in strategy building mode with regard to your common strategy. Just realistically, given you've got a strategy piece and then you're talking about sort of whole series of operational pieces to start building on that, when do you think operationally, from Lisa's perspective, you will have a sort of a more of an operational plan rather than a strategic plan?
Do you want to add to it? So we've given ourselves the next month to work through. I use terminology, the strategic side of it. Inside that, though, we'll be gathering the implementation part as well at the same time. So what we'll do is we'll bring that back to you. The implementation will be at a higher level than what we will expect in another couple of months' time, where we actually work through the organisation, because inside the delivery is making sure that we've got good ways of working. And I haven't discussed this with with our two wahine at the top of the table, but there's a ways of working piece that goes in. As it talks about, the comms team can't comms if they're not getting stuff from project managers. So we've got to help fix that loop at the same time.
I'm pleased we're talking about a 2 or 3 month time frame rather than a sort of this 2027 project.
It's absolutely our intention that this strategy will be ready to be implemented prior to going out to the community with the long-term plan.
Okay, that's probably a perfect place to stop, because I was just going to ask what was next, and you've pretty much done it. So, Scott and Lisa, thank you. This sounds like it's going to be good. Look forward to it. Okay, so I'm going to close down. Can you guys join me in the closing karakia, please?
We'll just go through this process.
Okay, everyone. Puratia te rangamari e, puratia te araha, puratia te nāko pai, puratia nā wawata, kia kore e naro, homie, hui, te tai.